welcome to stage 5, lesson 4 of the Roadmap to Success, where we're going to talk about local networking groups. Now, one of the things with local networking groups that I want to just talk about right at the outset is there is a large number of my audience who deals with anxiety or who are differently abled, so doing local networking events is challenging for you. I want to invite you to see how this may work for you, because it may not work for you exactly the way that I'm talking about in the video. But I want to recommend that if you want to try this, you bring this to the squad, we talk about it, and then we'll find ways to make it work for you with whatever framework you have, because that's sort of what that's the jam, right? We'll help you figure out within your framework. However, I want to encourage you to definitely take advantage of this opportunity of local networking, because that will help you grow a lot faster, because you already have the geographical community as well, and people tend to feel more kinship with people who are geographically located near them. And so just having that community locally will make a really big difference. There is really nothing stronger than local community. I was talking about that earlier on when we were talking about the local vegetable guy and the local butcher and the local, the sabzi wala, whatever, that's what we call them, the sabzi wala. We were talking about those local communities that people want to support. There is nothing stronger, but it's really, really hard to develop that, especially because of COVID, right? It's tough. And a lot of people don't want to get out there because they're immunocompromised, right? So there's a lot of things you can do online as well. However, the local part of it is really important. Now, most people say that they don't get a lot of value out of networking groups, and this is true. I have not gotten a lot of value out of many networking groups I've been in, but I have an understanding now of why that may have been, and so I want to offer you some of my experiences to see if they help you along the way, okay? One of the major reasons that we struggle with networking groups is because no one knows how to use them, myself included when I first started. For many of us, we joined the networking group with this intention of, networking. So I'm going to meet people, I'm going to hand out my business card, I'm going to tell them what I do, I'm going to get to practice my pitch. But basically, the goal that I have when I go there is I'm coming here, I'm going to meet someone, and I'm looking for someone to be a customer or a client of mine, right? And so if I get there and I'm meeting and talking to people and I don't get a client, then it's a failure. If I go the next time and I don't get a customer or client, it's a failure, and so on and so forth. I just continue to think it's a failure because I'm going with the intention of getting those customers. And that's the same thing that I was talking about with the Facebook groups, is that if you go in there with the intention of trying to figure out who you can get money from, it's going to telegraph in how you show up. People are going to be able to pick up on that discomfort, because most of us don't like to sell. And so that discomfort is going to be there. And generally you come off feeling like a little cagey, a little weird, even though you don't necessarily know that, because you feel uncomfortable selling, and you feel uncomfortable that you're doing that in this place because you inherently don't want to be that kind of person, but you're not sure how to grow otherwise. Many of us find ourselves in this cognitive dissonance space, which is why we don't like going to networking events, because they are simply no fun. Okay. So for me, it's really important that I find networking groups and events that I find fun, that I find enjoyable, even if they're not fun in the beginning, because obviously dealing with anxiety is not fun for anyone, but that I'm like, I think I could see a kinship with these people. I think I could connect with these people. So that's really what we're looking for here. We're not looking to go in and figure out who our next customer is going to be, okay? So you're going to see a lot more success with this strategy, because in my opinion, networking groups are actually for something else. They are there to build relationships between business owners that allows them to exchange ideas and improve faster. Because when you are sitting across from someone and talking about challenges that you're facing, and someone else gives you their solution and you're brainstorming together, there is an energy that happens right there, and an extreme, it's another life that is born in that conversation that then gives life to both of your businesses and lets both of you leave with a great deal of enthusiasm, whereas you didn't have it before. So it is a really great place to network in a way where you both share your ideas going in with the intention of service, right? They bounce pitches off of each other. That's a great way to use networking meetings, is to stand up and practice something different about your pitch. The long one, the short one, this is a really good place to workshop new ideas and new thoughts, because people are there and you can say, hey, what do you think? I'm workshopping a new pitch. It's a great place to do that. This is a safe space to do that too. They also learn together, right? They usually have somebody coming to speak about a topic that is relevant to the business owners, and they know about each other's kids, and they have more conversations. And especially after you've been going to these events for a really, really long time, you do start to get to know what people's families are doing. You know about the kids, you know about their hobbies. You start to learn more and more about them. And thus the community and the relationships start to get deeper, and those are born, right? Now, it's great that we're all looking for immediate ways. Oh, I have somebody I can help you with, and I have somebody I can help you with. Like, we're all looking for immediate ways to help, and that's fabulous. That's what the new influx of people is for. We, of course, want to make sure that we are helping each other. However, more than that, networking groups want new ideas and new enthusiastic members because those are the ones that ultimately help create the larger relationships and networks that actually create the sales. Networking groups are always, now this is something really important to keep in mind, is that if you're nervous about joining a networking groups are always looking for new members, new people, and new ideas. Okay, so you don't have to go in with the intention of making more money or like even knowing what your intention is. You can go in simply to go and engage with people, get to know people in your local area, share some ideas, and that's it. That's more than enough. And you can go only once if you want, just to get an idea of how it works, right? The way that I tend to do it is that when I join a networking group, there's two things that I do. First is I, if there's a local event, I find the bathroom. Okay, so for the if you sign up for a local networking event and you're there, find the bathroom. That's a really great way of avoiding anxiety. You can just go hide in the bathroom when you need to and come back out. Hide in the bathroom. I do that all the time. It's totally normal. I do it, and I share that technique with people. And now I find other people hiding in bathrooms with me because I've shared that technique with. So it's really fun. The other thing that you can do is volunteer for something immediately. And I don't mean like a long-term thing. You don't have to volunteer for the board, but you can volunteer to sign people in one day. You can volunteer to speak. You can volunteer to help somebody with something. Just volunteering for one thing so that people see you volunteering. All you need to do is that one time, and people remember that you came in with service to help, and then that makes them want to help you, because when somebody, this is natural human instinct. I help you, you will want to help me in return. That is how we are programmed. And so if you generate that feeling of goodwill, you are immediately now starting off where you are bringing something in, and then they want to help cultivate that relationship with you. So it doesn't feel quite so much like you're pushing the engine of the relationship. Check to see if they have focus trainings, member highlights, hot seats, speaking opportunities. You don't have to volunteer for the board, but a one-time action taken early on in your relationship can make a huge difference, and it pays off for the long term. Okay. Okay. Now, here's the question. How do you find groups? Okay. This is challenging because some of you may not have a lot of local groups. You may need to go a little bit farther afield. First things first, obviously go online. Go to Facebook, look for local networking groups there. Do a search for things like Plymouth Networking Group, Plymouth Business, Plymouth Women Networking, Plymouth Women Business, right? Things like Women Business Group. You're going to do searches like that and just put the word Plymouth in front of it. When you find your results, you open them all, tab after tab after tab after tab. Okay, so you found like 5, you found like 10, it doesn't matter how many you find, you're just basically opening them all in a tab. Okay, so what you have now is like 300 tabs. And the first tab is basically the list that the tab that you've been using to search. Okay. So when you're done with that and you're like, okay, I think I've exhausted my searching options here, go to those tabs and look through them, right? You're basically trying to see, how do you feel about these? Do your first run through where you're basically seeing, are they active? Is it relevant to you? You know, some may be like, you're like, oh, this is for nurses. This isn't right for me. This is only for people who live, you know, right in the corner of Eve and Maine. Okay, this isn't right. You know, basically getting rid of the ones that are like really low hanging fruit to get rid of. They're just not right for you. Then you want to go back again, right? Look at their Instagram page, look at their Facebook, and create your shortlist. So I created a shortlist when I was in Franklin of 3 or 4. And I just kind of put it aside for a little bit because I actually was very, very busy. I put it aside for a little bit. And then on my triage list, I had check out these 3 networking groups, and I had them all listed. If you do not have a triage list, I want to recommend that you check out the Hustle Proof Your Life add-on that is part of this course and get onto the 3-list system so that you can have a triage list and then put it on your triage list. Now, because that was on my triage list, I know I'm never going to forget it. So when I'm ready, I was like, okay, I'm ready now. I went back, added it to my active to-do list for that week, and then I went and researched a little more. I ended up joining 3 groups. I joined one that was mid-size, one that was really tiny, and one that was huge. The huge one, and all of them had the opportunity to go for one free thing, right? So one free event just to check it out. And some of them have like cheap, you know, like where you're like pay $10 for one event instead of being like a full member, that kind of thing. So you can go check that out. And I went 3 or 4 times, but honestly, it was too small. It was really, really too small. And I could tell that these business owners, though they were great and I liked them, they were not like, they were at a different stage of business, but they were also looking for something very different from their business. And I didn't necessarily think it was right for me. So I was like, even though it was great, it wasn't particularly right for me. So I left that one. I actually stayed in the Women's Success Network for the full year until I moved to 2 years actually. And I served on the board the second year, till I came to Plymouth. And then in Plymouth, I actually knew the networking group I wanted to join in Plymouth because I had really wanted to join them for a really, really long time, but I couldn't because I wasn't in the South Shore, because they're really active and they're really vibrant. And like, I've seen them around and I wanted to be a part of them. So the second I moved to Plymouth, I joined them. So I have that networking group, right? But you can see how I just knew which one I wanted. And then the others, I did the research, culled down the list to a few, I checked out a few of them, and then I was like, okay, this is the one that I'm going to stick with, and this is going to become my place. All right. So when you find the one that is going to be your place, that's when you go, you volunteer. That's when you go and you make friends. That's when you go, like, that's when you're going to start spending more time there and really investing time there, because now you know that this is going to be a part of your business strategy going forward. And that group will be a part of your business strategy going forward. Something to check, though, is to cross-reference as you're going through and looking for these groups, is to cross-reference the networking group in local groups. So for example, if I'm in All About Plymouth, I'm going to do a search for the South Shore Women's Network to see, do they advertise in All About Plymouth, right? Are they doing anything in there? Are they active in there? Because if they are, then that means that they're probably a pretty active community, right? So that's a way to like figure out how active they are, because you don't want to join a community that's dead, because then you have to do a lot of the work to keep the engine going. And the truth of the matter is that you have enough work to do with keeping your own engines going, your own businesses going. The whole point of joining a local networking group is for you to be able to be a passenger and not a driver. Okay. You're the driver over here, and that's a lot of work. You need some places where you can just be a passenger and let someone else run the show, and you're kind of just there showing up and being a member, right? That gives you the opportunity to just hang out, be a member, and not feel that level of pressure. If you sign up for an event, right? So if you're like, okay, I want to test out this particular group, I'm going to go, then show up. Okay. So something very important. I know that a lot of us have anxiety. It's really tough. If you are feeling challenged when the time comes to go, post it in the squad, get support, what have you. Obviously only if it's safe and only if you feel safe. A no-show is fine, because with COVID, of course, there's going to be some no-show situations. However, always let them know. And then after, like, you don't want to do it twice. Once happens, twice is kind of like, I don't know. Right. So that's really, really important. Once you've figured out where you want to be, you really only need to be a part of one local networking group. So you don't need to be a part of all the local networking groups. The only reason we're doing it this way is so that we can know that we searched all the things, we've done all the research, and the decision that you've made is based off of research and information, not one where you were just like, oh, I'll join that group because that's the first group that showed up, right? Because when you do it that way, you end up joining 13 groups, one after the other, and none of them actually work for you. What we're trying to do is make sure that we are identifying the group that will work for you in advance, and then adding that to your strategy, so that now you know that that's part of your regular routine that you're using to get more customers. You may need to check out a whole bunch, though. Okay. I joined a whole bunch. I joined the Boston Businesswomen. I found that they were too, actually, I loved that, but I felt like it was a bit too much of a cult of personality after a while. Like, I thought it wasn't really necessarily for me. It was very big, but it wasn't necessarily for me. I'm sure they're doing really, really great. They're an amazing group. It's just not right for me. Women Helping Women Entrepreneurs. I joined that group as well. Now, that's not a local networking group, but I do not find that group helpful at all, because it's just, there's too many people, there's too much noise. I don't know that it's particularly helpful, as much as it's just got a lot of people doing the same thing, and I prefer more niched and smaller groups. There are definitely people who find a lot of value in these larger groups, but I am not one of them, and I'm not entirely sure that my audience would find value in there either. And then the Women's Success Network is where I ended up staying. So I want to touch base on a couple of other networking groups that you may have heard of. You have the BNI. That is, so I know a couple of people who love the BNI. They swear by it. They make a lot of money off of it. But I think that it takes a very particular personality type, and it's not mine. I find it to be very regimented. It's very regimented. It's too intimidating. It's not my jam. So it's not, so BNI is not something that I ever wanted to go with. The Chamber of Commerce, they are very hit or miss. So you can have a chamber that is amazing, or you can have a chamber that's terrible. So the only way to really know is for you to get involved and find out. I historically have not been involved in my chamber. So the information that I'm giving you about this is from people that my clients that I work with. I've had people who work with the chamber, and they've done the ribbon cutting, and they've done the publications and the publicity, and they've done so much stuff for them. There are other chambers of commerce that won't do anything, and they're very centered around certain areas, and they're not interested in helping out. So you're going to have to figure out if that's something that you want to join. But know that if you're not feeling a place, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not cut out for it. They just may have the wrong vibe for you. And that's totally fine, because there's a lot of different networking groups, and that's why we're doing it this way, is because for many of us, we feel like, oh, there's the networking group. This is my shot, right? But we don't realize is that the shot is the whatever you choose, and your best shot is going to be one that you like. not one that you're analyzing based off of the highest return you think it's going to give you, right? If you join a group or a local networking group because you think it's going to give you the highest return, but you don't really enjoy it, you'll never go. You'll spend a lot of money and then you'll feel like a loser afterwards. So it's one of those things where let's set ourselves up for success by doing the research in advance, because then you know with confidence that you don't have to worry about the groups that you're in. So I personally tend to prefer women only spaces. Okay. So I know that I won't be comfortable in a lot of heavily male dominated groups. Like I'm fine if there's a woman dominated group that has some dudes in it, but like, and I'm using the term woman in the all inclusive way, but if there's a dude in it, it's fine. Right. But for the most part, I prefer women dominated spaces. So your homework now, okay? So your homework now is going to be this. I want you to head over to the worksheet for this lesson. I want you to shortlist your 3 networking groups, and I want you to share those groups in the squad. If you are having trouble finding networking groups, post in the squad that you're looking for a networking group in where you're looking for it, and let's see if we can't get get some crowdsourcing, because that is an excellent way for you to find networking groups. Who knows, you may even find a squad member who is already in one of those groups, and that would make it so much better, right?